So we got paid out our distributions this week. So let's go through, update the stock tracker sheet. And I also want to show you a little change that I have made in the stock tracker sheet. Rev 3A is available, but this Rev 3B is not yet available, as I will be giving everybody a little time to throw in some comments, ideas in the Discord, or even in the comments below of other things that you'd like to see in this stock tracker sheet. And I'll see if I can add that in before releasing Rev 3B. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So we got paid out our distributions this week, so I wanted to go in, update the stock tracker sheet, and also just give you an example of what we're going to have to do for these reverse splits. And come Monday, we will be getting that reverse split on that first set of ETFs. And the one that I have in that first set is going to be ULTY. So once we receive that information from the broker of what that new purchase price is, along with the change in the shares, then we'll be able to update this spreadsheet accordingly. So please be patient, as it will take a couple of days before I can get a video out to show exactly what we need to enter in to get that updated. Now each one will be slightly different because everybody has different number of shares, uses a different broker and such, because everybody's buy price is probably not going to be the same buy price. But how you get there and how you calculate it will be the same. So there will be more to come on that. But the one thing we do have is the new payouts for the distributions, and I want to go through those and update my real price per share of each. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, hit that like button, as it does help the channel out. Now I wanted to go over and just show my quick little summary here. And this is my summary page. And it shows all of the ETFs that I have. And you can see them. They're just scrolled right across through here. And you've got slots up to a total of 20 ETFs. I have 14 currently. And it pulls all that information into this one sheet to where you can look at this and then decide if it's the right time to buy more shares, if you're looking to buy more shares, or if it's the right time to just sit on your hands and ride it on out. But of course, none of this is financial advice. This is only for entertainment, and I'm only showing what I'm doing in my positions that I hold. So the most important part on this summary page here is this right here. And this is the real price per share, or your adjusted price per share. So what this does, and it tells you that if it's red, if you were to buy those shares at the current market price, and that current market price is also listed on this same sheet for easy convenience. And like I said, if it's red, then if you were to buy at the current market price, you will lower this real price per share. But if it's green, then that means that your real price per share or your adjusted price per share is under the current market price. And if you did buy, you would end up raising your real price per share. And in my method, I do not want to do that. I only want to lower my real price per share. I do not want to raise it. And that's the main reason I don't use DRIP, because I have no control over what that buy price is going to be. I prefer to buy when it's going to benefit me, not necessarily just to buy at whatever price, whether I'm averaging up or averaging down in the position. Because in these high yield ETFs, I personally do not want to average up. I only want to average down. So if I can't purchase, then I'm going to let that distribution average me down. But if I can purchase some more shares, I can do that. And that will also help me average down along with that distribution. But as you can see, I still am down on those three: CONY, ULTY, and SMCY. All the rest of them, as you can see, are green all across here, which means if I were to sell my shares at the current price, I will earn a profit. And if I scroll all the way to the end, you can see right here that if I were to sell out of all of my positions at the current price, I will make $16,306. And that would be closing all of the positions at that current market price. Now that current market price, of course, is the Friday's close because this is the weekend. But that gives you an idea and shows you that even though I am down on these three, the other ones I am up enough that more than covers those losses. But I'm not selling out of any of them at this moment. But I just wanted to show you what the power of knowing what your real price per share is, because even though, say in PLTY, I have an average purchase price of $60.67, right? And that's my average purchase price. That is not my adjusted purchase price. That is my average purchase price. And since the actual market price is under that average purchase price, without knowing what my real price per share is, and just knowing that my purchase average is $60 and the market price being $53, it looks like if I buy more shares, I am going to average my purchase price down. And yes, I will, but I would be raising that adjusted price per share here and wouldn't even know it if I'm not calculating that number. So that is the reason why I do calculate that adjusted price per share, because that to me is my real price per share, and that helps me to know if by buying those shares, if it's going to be beneficial for me or not. And I want to have the best chance to stay ahead of any price decline. So I want to make sure I am calculating that real price per share on each one of these high yield ETFs that I own. And of course, if you do not have a way of calculating that real price per share, you're more than welcome to join the Discord to get a copy so that you can enter in your own ETF stock purchase prices and your distributions you've earned over each one, and it will help to track so that you would know what your real price per share is and to know whether or not it's actually a good time to buy like CONY versus not so good on PLTY, because I do not want to average up and extend out my payoff period, which is this number right here. So come on over, join the Discord, get your copy of the spreadsheet, enter in your own information, and start tracking your own ETF plays so that you can stay informed of that real price per share. So let's just go ahead and let's jump right over it and start entering in our distributions and to find out what my real price per share will change on each one of these. So we'll start right off here with CONY. And I have already entered in those distribution rates right here. As you can see, on 11/28, we earned 0.0656 for CONY. All I have to do now is just enter in the eligible shares for that distribution. It'll calculate it all out for me. And then we can follow up with that summary page once again, as it will update automatically as you enter in any information into these individual sheets for each individual stock ticker. Now 11/28, that is the X date, and that's the date I use because you have to own those shares before this date, and it just makes it nice and easy to look right over here. And if I have any shares at or after that X date, then I know not to count those shares. But for all shares before that 11/28 X date, then I can count all those shares. And in this case, I get to count all of them, and all of them being 625 shares as shown right here. All I do is enter in the 625, and when I hit enter, it will calculate the adjusted price per share of 589 will then become 582. So it's bringing it down a little bit. And if CONY comes back up, then that can help me get a little closer. And then CONY doesn't have to move up as high because I am continually bringing my price down. And if I buy more shares, I can lower it even lower. And at the end, I will show you one little thing I have added to that summary page to help you maybe determine if it makes sense to purchase shares or not of a stock that has a price under your real price per share. And let's move on to PLTY. And PLTY, I have a real price per share of $6.55. I get to count all 37 shares, and that changes that real price per share from $6.55 down to $5.96. And for NVDY, I can count all 71 shares for NVDY, and it will change that real price per share from $13.09 down to $12.92. So looking pretty good here, as the current price is $14.38. So even if NVDY continues to move up some, I'm continuing to move down. But if it does move down, I'm at least moving down too. So it takes a little bit more for it to catch up to me. Versus if you were just dripping and averaging up on your adjusted price per share, then if NVDY drops, it doesn't have to go down as far before all of a sudden the price is below your adjusted price per share. So for NVDY, my real price per share is now $12.92. ULTY, I've got a real price per share of $4.36. Current price is $4.03. So not too bad off here actually, right? But I get to enter in my eligible shares, and this is for all shares before 11/26, and my last purchase was 11/20. So I get to account for all 330 shares on NVDY. So my $4.36 real price per share, once I enter in my 330 eligible shares, it then becomes $4.30. Loving it, right? Now, yes, if you had drip on in this case, it would still be lowering it as well because that current price is below your adjusted price per share. But if ULTY would move back up to say $5 and you still had drip on, then your adjusted price per share would not be coming down. It would be moving up because you're buying above that price, and that's going to average you up. And then if ULTY drops back down, you can see that you're losing a little bit of ground by averaging up. Whereas I'm always averaging down. If I can't buy shares because the price is under my real price per share, then my distributions are lowering my real price per share. So I have it working both ways for me. And if it can't work both ways, then I'm just letting that distribution lower it each week. Next is MSTY. And for MSTY, I get to account for all 475 shares and my real price per share, which is paid off because as you can see, it is green and it is a negative 38 cents or 1.57% in the good, right? So it is currently paid off, and adding those distributions to it is just going to show that I am in the good even more, right? So that real price per share now becomes 0.52. Nice, right? So super excited there. And of course up here you can see where it does help to add up how much over that paid off status that I could use to buy more shares and it still stay within that paid off status. So I could buy 34 more shares of MSTY at the current price and it would still stay as paid off. But currently, I'm just holding and just gathering up the distributions. Next, SMCY. And for SMCY, it had an X date of 11/28. All of my purchases are before that. So therefore, I get to account for all 70 shares. So entering in that 70 shares means that real price per share of $10.41 now becomes $10.25. Bringing it on down, and with the current price of $9.51, I'm only 75 cents away, right? So not too bad at all. For AMD, I get to account for all 820 shares, and my real price per share of $6.88 now becomes $6.77. So even though AMD did come down some, right? I'm still moving my average down and trying to keep ahead of it so that even if it would come down some more, it's got to come down even further to catch up to me, because I continually to move it away, whether AMD is going down, sideways, or up. I always roll my real price per share down. YMAX, I got 758 shares that I can account for that, and my real price per share of $8.34 now becomes $8.24. And it looks like I've got about 60 more distributions, and YMAX will get paid off, so just over a year, and then that would be free and clear money coming in on shares that I do not even have any money tied to. HUI, and for HUI, I can account for all shares before 11/28, and that is all my shares because the last purchase was on 11/20. So 48 shares entered into my eligible number of shares. So my real price per share of $54.28 now becomes $53.54. The current price of HUI being $55.51. So even if it drops down to 54, guess what? I'm still under it now versus what I was just before entering or receiving this distribution. And that's how I'm playing these high yield ETFs. I definitely play more on the defense. QDTE, I get to account for all 155 shares. So my real price per share of $27.92 now becomes $27.69. Like I said, every one of my adjusted prices per share are coming down because that's how I play these high yield ETFs. IWMY, that's 551 shares. So a real price per share of $17.05 now becomes $16.76. Little by little, just eating away at it. But I'm giving myself plenty of buffer if IWMY at 2061 decides to come down. I now have almost $4 of buffer, right? And that's what I mean by playing the defense on these high yield ETFs, because I want to use these for income in the future, but I don't want my money tied up in it, right? QQQY, I have 551 shares. I can account for this distribution. So $21.74 real price per share now becomes $21.38. Love it, right? Love it. WDTE got 540 shares. So a real price per share of $28.27 now becomes $27.98. Staying ahead of that current price of WDTE being at $32.37 because I'm at $27.98. Love it. And last but not least is JEPQ. And I can account for this distribution even though that X date is not until Monday. I'm going to go ahead and enter it in because I did receive that distribution amount. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that in and update my real price per share this weekend, as this will go into effect on Monday for that X date. And I have a total of 47 shares. So my real price per share of $3.71 now becomes $3.16. And with a current price of $58.81, yeah, I'm doing well in this one. So that's all the positions that I have of my high yield ETFs. But I just wanted to also look at ULTY right here, just to let you know, as I stated earlier, ULTY will be doing their reverse split, and it will be a 1-for-10. So I will receive 1 share for every 10 shares I own. And to get this sheet corrected, once this price changes and the number of shares that I have will be adjusted, we'll need to enter in 2 lines right here, okay? And we'll enter those in, and I'll show you what you need to enter in there once it comes time. But as an example, I have gone through a couple other reverse splits before, and one of those examples is IWMY, QQQY, and WDTE. And all 3 of these were Defiance funds, okay? So we'll just use QQQY here for the example. This is pretty much what we'll enter in to correct the sheet to show the correct number of shares and our correct average price per share, as all of that will change once it goes through that reverse split. Now the current price up here will adjust automatically once that reverse split goes through. So we won't have to do anything with this, but we will need to adjust because our number of shares will change, our purchase share average will change, your total distributions invested will not change. If anything, it might lower slightly if you had some fractional shares, because those fractional shares will probably just get paid out in cash, and therefore that will probably lower a little bit of your invested capital into this particular stock ticker, because you will get paid out those fractional shares in cash. At least that's what I've seen in the past. But all of these numbers over here will get adjusted, your real price per share and such. But what we'll end up entering in is our average price that it was sold at and how many shares you had, and that will be a negative number, right? Because we're selling those shares out. And then it will repurchase those shares. After that reverse split, you'll have a new price per share that it would buy at, and then you'll have your total number of shares, which in ULTY's case, it will be 1/10 of the number of shares that you had. So basically the number of shares divided by 10, and the price will roughly be times 10. But I will show you what you need to do, because your broker should provide you with this dollar value here that gets sold out. And then it should provide you with that dollar amount that it actually purchased shares with. So if you have that dollar value from your broker and you know how many shares you had and how many shares you now have, then it's easy to calculate that buy and sell price over here. So that's what we'll end up doing next week once we receive that information from the broker. Now I know ULTY will be doing a reverse split on Monday, but it may take a few days before I can get a chance to actually put this together. But don't worry, we'll get it straightened out and then you'll be all set. But like I said, we'll enter in a couple lines right here for a sell order and a buy order, as that is usually how your broker handles these reverse splits. They basically close out your position into cash and then take the cash and purchase those number of shares that they can get at that price. So the share count will be 1/10 of the number of shares you had, and then that buy price will just be a calculation of the total amount that you have in that purchase divided by the number of shares that you purchased will give you that buy price. So like I said, we'll go over that later next week, so don't worry about that. And the last thing I wanted to show you was in my summary page, I now have a real price per share calculator right here. Now, this is not yet available as this is a Rev 3B in process, okay? The 3A, which is this same information, just pretty much minus the calculator and a couple other little tweaks that I did make and corrected. But if there are any other ideas or anything else that you would like me to add or change or adjust, throw them in the comments. Or if you're a Discord member, make sure to put it in the spreadsheet channel where you can ask questions about the spreadsheet or offer up ideas, and I'll take a look at those and see if I can add those in before I release the 3B. But how the calculator works is you have your list of ETFs that you're in, and it automatically searches and it knows which ones that you have. And it has a little drop down box, and you just pick one of the ones that you have. In our case here, if I said I was going to buy more ULTY, I can select ULTY right here because ULTY is red, right? So I would not necessarily want to pick NVDY because it's green. So on ULTY at 430, if the market price is 403, if I bought shares, what would it end up making my real price per share if I did purchase those shares at 403? Just to give you an idea of what that change would be before you actually buy them. So you can enter in your buy price here, and we'll just enter in as 403 being the market price and the number of shares, and we'll just say we're going to buy 50 shares. So it's going to total up how much it would cost you and then what that new real price per share would be. Because the old one being $4.30, what would it be if I bought 50 shares at $4.03? Well, it would change it to $4.26, and it would cost me $201.50. So it really just kind of gives you an idea of what that real price per share would be if you did make a purchase. And it could also help you if you wanted to enter in, well, what if this drops down to $3.90? Do I want to wait until it hits $3.90 and buy 50 shares? What would my real price per share be? $4.24. Well, maybe I want that instead, and I'll put a buy order in for $3.90. And if ULTY drops down and hits it, it's going to buy my 50 shares at $3.90. And that's going to help drop my real price per share from $4.30 down to $4.24. Right? So this calculator is really just for your own viewing purposes. It does not adjust or change anything in the calculations in the table. It only gives you a quick snapshot of what that real price per share would be if you bought those shares at that price. So this was an idea from someone in the comments, and I wanted to add that in. I did like that idea, so I do appreciate that. And like I said, if there are any other comments or any other suggestions, throw them in there and I'll take a look and to see if I can add that in or not. Not everything can be added in, but you don't know unless you ask. So again, if you do not have a way of tracking that real price per share, join the Discord. Link is in the pinned comments and in the description below. And I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. It would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.